Welcome dear students with a new topic, and today our topic is Theory of Circulation of Elites by Vilfred. This lecture will focus on the Vilfred Pareto's conception of elite. The lecture will try to see his classification of elites and will try to analyze his conception of circulation of elite and the various qualities that the elite should have. The study of politics is concerned with the description and analysis of the manner in which power is obtained, exercised and controlled, and the purpose for which it's used. The manner in which decisions are made, the factors which influence the making of those decisions, and the context in which those decisions take place. Hence, political sociology is understood as the study of power. Vilfred Pareto has made notable contribution to this perspective. Pareto's treatment of the circulation of elites is often cited and is generally considered the most interesting part of his sociology. Pareto believed that individuals are born with quite different abilities and acquire quite different skills and aptitudes. According to Pareto, since in every society there are classes, therefore each society is heterogeneous. Such heterogeneity takes place on account of mental, moral, physical and cultural reasons, but helps in maintaining social balance and organization. According to Pareto, people are unequal physically as well as intellectually and morally. Some people are more gifted than others. Pareto says those who are most capable in any particular grouping are the elite. The term elite denotes simply a class of the people who have the highest indices in their branch of activity. So, according to Pareto, and I quote, by elite we mean the small number of individuals who in each sphere of activity have succeeded and have arrived at a higher echelon in the professional hierarchy, unquote. Examples are the successful businessmen, artists, successful writers, professors, etc. In a general sense, the term elite was employed to refer to commodities of particular quality. In the 17th century, the word elite was broadened to include social groups such as higher ranks of nobility and others that could be treated as better quality to the rest of them. It was only in the later part of the 19th century that the term gained popularity in sociological writings in Europe. In 1930s, sociological theories of elite developed in Britain and America, particularly in the writings of Vilfred Pareto. Vilfred Pareto explained the concept of elite in terms of a class of people with highest indices, referring to sign of capacity. For example, a successful doctor has the highest index. This class of people is referred to as the elite. Therefore, according to Pareto, the elite class comprises all those who have succeeded and are considered by their peers and the public as the best. When he spoke of the elite consistently, Pareto meant not only those who have succeeded, but those who exercise the political functions of administration or government and those who influence or determine the conduct of governing machinery, though they are not officials or ministers. There are two categories: the non-elite, who may or may not have a role to play in the government, and the elite. The elite category is divided into two subcategories of governing elite and non-governing elite, the masses. In other words, Pareto discussed power as the universal aspect of social stratification. He talks of two strata in a population. One, lower stratum or the non-elite. Two, higher stratum or the elite. Pareto further divided the elite class into two categories, a governing elite, a non-governing elite. Now, a governing elite comprising individuals who directly or indirectly play some considerable part in government. A non-governing elite is comprising the rest of the individuals. Pareto's main discussion focuses on the governing elite. Governing elites are directly and indirectly concerned with administration. They play highly important role and enjoy prestigious place in society. Non-governing elites are not connected with administration, but occupy such a place in society that they somehow influence the administration. Now, let's discuss the basic characteristics of elite as per Vilfred Pareto. Number one, the individuals not belonging to either of the governing elite or non-governing elite are called non-elite. Second, the class of elite is universal and continuous process. Third, the elite manipulates overtly or covertly the political power. Fourth, the elite is having the capacity to establish superiority over others. Fifth, the members of the elite class will always try that the non-elites should not influence social, economic and political processes in any manner. Sixth, the non-elites respect only such elites who are liberal in outlook and approach, because they alone can help them to come nearer to each other. Bogadas has described the theory of elite is that in every society there are people who possess in a marked degree the qualities of intelligence, character, skill, capacity, whatever kind, that there are two classes of elite, that the two groups are disjunctive at any given time, that there is an up and down circulation of elite. Now, seventh, circulation or upward and downward circulation among us the members of the elite and non-elite is a typical characteristic of the elite. Pareto significantly identified the element of mobility in the elite class. He did not claim that the elites were a static category which was constituted once and for all. Pareto propounded the idea of circulation of elite. The theory of circulation of elite may be explained through two approaches. These are as follows. Approach first is circulation of elite refers to the process in which individuals circulate between the elite and the non-elite groups. Second is circulation of elite also refers to the process in which one elite group is replaced by another. Pareto incorporated both the conception, but the former conception referring to the circulation of individuals between elite and non-elite groups predominates. In the context of decay and renewal of aristocracies, Pareto explains that the governing class is restored not only in numbers, but and it is that the more important thing in quality by families rising from lower classes. He also mentioned that circulation of elites leads to the increase of degenerate elements in the classes which still hold power and increase in the elements of superior quality in the subject classes, that is, non-elite class. In such a situation, social equilibrium becomes unstable. Even a gentle blow may be sufficient to collapse it. Subsequently, a new elite comes to power and establishes a new equilibrium after a conquest or a revolution. Pareto also reiterated the occurrence of circulation of individuals between the elite and non-elite classes. He explained that the governing class constituting the elite might induct those people in the lower classes from whom they perceive threat or danger. When such people are included into the elite group, they change their character completely and adopt the attitude and interests of the established elite. For Pareto, the elite can behave as either foxes or lions. In other words, the elite can choose the rule by manipulation or by force. Following the Machiavellian formula, Pareto states that the elite are able to manipulate and control the masses by resorting to two methods: force or fraud, which corresponding to Machiavelli's famous antithesis between the lions and the foxes. Using the concepts of Machiavelli, Pareto distinguished two basic types of elite groups. First, lion elites who were capable of ruling by force, for example, military dictatorship or military regimes. Lion gain power because of their ability to take direct and powerful actions to rule. The lions are conservative elites in whom the second class of residues are the persistence of aggregates, predominates. They have faith and ideology. They display group loyalty and class solidarity. They gain and retain power by the use of force. Now, the second class of elites are fox elites, who ruled by diplomatic manipulation, for example, liberal democratic regimes. Fox rule by cunningness. The foxes are the elites abundantly endowed with residues of the first class, residues of combinations, which include the propensities in social groups to adopt flexibility to environmental or situational exigencies. They are capable of innovation and experiment, prefer materialistic to idealistic goals, but lack fidelity to principles, and use strategies that vary from emotional appeal to unadulterated fraud. It is thus evident that Pareto's opinion of political power was very much all-encompassing. He tried to solve the problem of political change. Pareto elaborated how effectively all powerful elite could be displaced by other elite. So according to him, it could be done by reference to the idea that elites, after they have gained the power, have a comparatively limited lifespan. The elites turn self-indulgent, decay, lose their force, and in turn are replaceable by other more powerful elite or more powerful elite groups. Within a party, different elite groups exist and rise to prominence, attain power within the party, and after some years start to decay. In Pareto's words, powerful groups arise in society, take power, lose their political vitality over time, and are eventually replaced. So again, according to Pareto, the work and the role of the elites are influenced by two types of factors which are always operative in every society. One type, which is constant, is called residues. The other type is derivations. So according to Pareto, social change comes because of residues of combination and residue of persistence of aggregates. Cycle of social change is a continuous process. Political, economic, and ideological factors are responsible for continuing this process. Vilfred Pareto analyzed the theory of circulation of elites with the help of notions of residues and derivations. According to Pareto, there are 6 basic human drives or instincts, which he terms residues. The residues are manipulated by the elite through the use of 4 political strategies that Pareto terms as derivations. The 6 residues are as follows. First, instinct of combination. All people have an instinct to live together in groups. Second, persistence of aggregates or group persistence. Once groups are established, people have an instinctual need to maintain them. Third, need to expressing sentiments by external acts, activity, self-expression. People attempt to reinforce the bonds that hold groups together by forming rituals, such as those we find in religions. Fourth, residues connected with sociality. People have a drive for uniformity and an instinctual hostility to outsiders. Fifth, self-preservation or integrity of the individual and his or her appearances. Individuals have an instinct to maintain their own security, property, and social position. And finally, the final residue is sex residue of sexuality. Sexuality has a role to play in maintaining the social bonds of society. Now, this was all about the residues. Now, coming to the derivations. Now, the 4 derivations, as I already mentioned, about Pareto, we will explain them as follows. So, the first one is simple assertion. People in elite positions simply state that something is right and that is accepted as a satisfactory justification. Second, authority. The masses accept what they are told by the elite because they accept the laters, that is the elite's position, as legitimate. Third, sentiments or principles. The masses accept what they are told by the elite because they believe that the latter are conforming to public opinion. And fourth is verbal proofs. The masses are persuaded to behave in a particular way or to accept a belief by the convincing argument of the elite. The concept of elites have been given a great deal of attention by Vilfred Pareto. Pareto's view and conclusions about the elites are interesting and incisive. According to him, every society has elite groups of different kinds. These elites, being the best or excellent members of their classes are always in a minority, but they are nonetheless vital, and it is they who determine the development or progress of every society. Pareto concerns himself with a simple distinction between those having a power called the elite and those having none called the non-elites. He sees the history of every human society as the history of the relationship between its elite who rules and its non-elites who are just ruled. Circulation of elite is between elite and non-elite, and between governing elite and non-governing elite. So, according to Pareto, there can be also a circulation of elites in the sense of being a process by which individuals circulate between the elites and the non-elites. This process of replacement takes place in 2 ways. It is either by a gradual process of infiltration or by a violent revolution. Pareto explains all this in terms of change in the psychological characteristics of the members of the elite on the one hand and those of the lower strata on the other. Thus, when the elite no longer possesses the residue necessary for keeping it in power, and at the same time, at the lower strata of the society, the necessary residues are sufficiently manifest, then the declining elite recruits new elements from the lower strata of the society and thereby restores its vitality. Or it may so happen that an elite decaying in the necessary residue is violently overthrown by the lower classes, strong in the requisite residues necessary for keeping them in power. According to Pareto, the elites not only change within or amongst their own classes, they also do so across the classes. A few individuals may join the ranks of elites from the non-elite groups, and a few elites may become non-elite members of the society. The number of the various elite groups may decline both in arithmetical terms as well as in their quality or significance on account of the various factors. When this happens, the elites cease to be the elites and tend to come down to the non-elite group. On the other hand, when some members of the non-elite groups achieve excellence or acquire special power, they tend to join the particular elite groups. Pareto says that this kind of increase in the number or strength of elites as well as the decrease or decline in their ranks is a common feature of every society. Pareto takes a very large canvas of history, particularly Roman history, and the Italian history of his times to show how the circulation of elites takes place. He observes that in a perfectly free society, there would be a constant and free circulation of elites. But such a perfect society is almost an ideal society. Most societies have imperfections of various types, and therefore the circulation of elites is seldom ideally free or unimpeded. Pareto adds that in case of great social change, as signified by wars or revolutions, there takes place a large-scale replacement of the old elites by the new ones. He argued that whether particular elites stay in power or not, whether they are partially or fully replaced or not, the fact remains that they remain in vital position and characterized the development and progress of a given society. Pareto argues that men have a predominance of either class 1 residue, where they are the foxes, or class 2 residue, where they are the lions. The style of governing will depend on whether the ruling elite is composed of the foxes or lions. The foxes are bold and adventurous. They do not care to be cautious and live by cunning and cleverness. In the economic field, the foxes are the speculators. They do not dread risks for the sake of maximum profits. They indulge in promotion schemes. The lions, on the other hand, are solid, conservative, tradition-loving, loyal to family, church, and nation. They always prefer to rely on force rather than on cleverness. In their economic field, they are rentiers. They are cautious, thrifty, content with small returns on safe investments, and unwilling to gamble. The elite are composed of either of these types of individuals, depending on the sort of residues that happen to prevail. When class 1 residues are dominant, the foxes will rule, and the predominance of class 2 residues will establish the rule by the lions. Indeed, history reveals a constant alteration between an elite having the dominant class 1 residues and an elite having the preponderance of class 2 residues. The theory of elite is that in every society there are, and I quote, people who possess in a marked degree the qualities of intelligence, character, skill, capacity of whatever kind, that there are two kinds of elite and that the two groups are disjunctive at any given time, and that there is an up and down circulation of elite. But aristocracies with the governing elite at the top do not last. Pareto says history is the graveyard of aristocracy. The famous statement reveals the fact that history is accentuated with the elite class since generations, who emerge, dominate, fall into descendancy, and is replaced by non-descendant elites in society. Pareto has given a number of reasons for mortality of aristocracy, which are engraved in history for generations and generations. First, aristocrats, mainly king and emperor, were engaged in historical wars which led to degeneration of aristocracy. Second, the inheritors of aristocracy. They are not necessarily possessed with some inherent traits of that of their forefathers, but they rule or govern on the basis of heredity, even though they may not have the necessary skill, knowledge about the governance and sufficient ability to govern the kingdom or empire. They fall into descendants after few hours of glory. Thus, aristocracies emerge, dominate, fall into descendants, and fall into power, replaced by non-descendant elites. In conclusion, we can say, on the whole, the up and down movement of elite takes place in two ways. Firstly, some non-elite, by their merit, may rise to the level of elite. Secondly, by revolution, the entire governing class may be reduced to the status of the governed. Pareto says circulation of elite is necessary for healthy social change. The general mechanism of society, according to Pareto, can be understood by interest, residues, derivations, and social heterogeneity. These four major variables are in a state of mutual dependence on which the movement of society depends. These are the four clear components in all the activities which had to assume some sort of equilibrium in any social system. By the circulation of elites, Pareto wrote, the governing elite is in a state of continuous and slow transformation. It flows like a river, and what it is today is different from what it was yesterday. Every so often, there are sudden and violent disturbances. The river floods and breaks its banks. Then afterwards, the new governing elite resume again and slow process of self-transformation. The river returns to its bed and once more flows freely on. Now let's do the criticism of Pareto. Now firstly, Pareto fails to provide a method of measuring and distinguishing between the supposedly superior qualities of the elite. He simply assumes that the qualities of the elite are superior to those of the mass. His criteria for distinguishing between loin and foxes is merely his own interpretation of the style of the elite rule. Moreover, Pareto fails to provide a way of measuring the process of elite descendants. He suggested that if the elite is closer to recruitment from below, it is likely to rapidly lose its vigor and vitality and have a short life. Talcott Parsons criticized Pareto that he failed to define the conditions governing change in the proportions of residues. He has not said anything about biological and genetic factors bearing upon these changes. Michel also criticized that Paretian's scheme has a metaphysical strength along with an empirical weakness. Pareto's concept of residues and their part in the social change is not clearly defined. But in spite of these criticisms, his circulation of elite is a very important contribution to the study of sociology. This was all about Vilfred Pareto, and I hope you have understood it. Thank you.